Jane-Finch.com.
Okay. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. If you could please be seated. My name's Tom Rakocevic, and I'm going to be moderating this town hall meeting. So I'm just going to lay down a little bit of the ground rules. We want to respect everybody's time. I know it's a cold night. People are going to want to get home to their warm houses and apartments, so we're going to try to move it along. Just to give you a little overview, this is a town hall meeting. Primarily what we'd like to talk about today is TTC with respect to the subway construction, which is now underway. All right? People can applaud to that. It's been a long time waiting for this community, right? We're also going to be talking a little bit about Budget 2011. I know that's on everybody's minds if they've been reading the papers and watching news. As well, something that Councillor Perruzza has been fighting over the last 4 years for, which was better rights for tenants. And we do have a new building inspection team, and we have the manager, Bill Blakes, who will also be giving some information on that as well. So finally, just to give you a little bit of how it's going to work. So it's going to be roughly 10 minutes per speaker. When we've got through that, again, what I'd like to make sure is that let's please leave the questions to the end so that we can get through this. And at the very end, we'll be taking all questions at that point, okay? We have to be out of here by 9, so at 8:30 we're going to be wrapping up the questions as well, and that'll leave some time for you to be out in the main area there. If you have a personal question, casework, if it's of a personal nature, we respectfully ask you to wait till the end. Councillor Perruzza's staff, as well as the other members who will be speaking here, will be here at the end as well, but Councillor Perruzza's staff, including myself, will be here to take your personal issues, and that way we can respect everybody's time. All right? So I also want to thank the TRCA who set up a booth out there with some information in 31 Division as well. And also letting you know, take the time to look. There's actually a petition out there with regards to the transit plan for Finch West. Take the time to talk to the people out there as well. And if you're interested, sign a petition because it makes a difference, okay, for us in the community here. So thank you again for braving the cold. And I'm going to call up Councillor Perruzza for an introduction.
Thank you very much, Tom. I know there's going to be some presentations. Everyone is going to be doing a brief presentation, and then I guess we'll open it up for questions at the end. I just want to, along with Tom, basically welcome you all here. I know that it's been a while since many of us have seen each other, mostly during the election and a little after the election. So this is our first main meeting. It's been a very, very busy time at City Hall. We're moving towards approving this year's budget. It's a fast-track process. Normally, the budget vote would come sometime in April in the matter course of the budget, but this year everything got moved up, so it's been quite busy. And that's what we've been doing, so we're going to get to talk a little bit about that as well. Thank you all very much for coming, and then we'll take some questions at the end, and we can chat about anything you'd like to talk about, okay? So we'll try to move it along fairly quickly. Tom?
So our first speaker of the evening is Ted Zander, resident superintendent with the Spadina Subway Extension Project. He manages the Finch West area and the advanced work which is currently under construction. Thank you, Ted.
Thanks.
Oh, you're gonna put there?
Good evening. Thank you for the introduction. Councillor Perruzza asked us to give you a very brief update on what's happening on the... Can you not? Is that better? That works? Oh, fantastic. Give you a very brief update on what's happening over the next few months on our subway extension program. Still can't hear me. Okay. That work? Oh, fabulous. Thank you. So as I said, Councillor Perruzza asked us to give us a very brief update on what's happening over the next few months. Before I do so, I'd like to introduce three people. One is Alan Bowden, who is responsible for construction of the entire subway, Christina, who is our construction liaison person. She has located 1120 Finch, where we are in the process of opening an information center. I think her business cards or her contacts are left on the table outside, so if you ever have any questions or concerns, you're welcome to call her, make an appointment, and go and see her. It's not very far from here. I'm going to be talking about 3 main points. One is the start of a new detour, demolition, and a long-term detour that is going to be there for a number of years. This picture shows you this is at the Murray-Ross intersection, and I'm sure many of you have seen it. It's the current contract which deals with the relocation of utilities all the way down Keele Street. We are replacing here 2 major water mains. One is an 1800 water main, and one is a 1350 millimeter water main. As you can see, the excavations are deep, wide, and require an awful lot of equipment. One of the tasks we have is that we have to cross Keele Street at approximately that location with a 900 millimeter water main. And in order to do that, we will have to detour the southbound Keele Street. We we haven't looked at and are planning to detour the southbound Keele Street traffic along Murray-Ross down Columbia Gate, down Columbia Gate and out Four Winds Drive. During that period, we will make Columbia Gate a one-way street. We continue to keep Four Winds Drive as a two-way street so that you have full access out of the apartment buildings that are adjacent to that street. Now, the one thing that you should become aware of is that when we do that, detour, we will have to take all traffics. We will have to take industrial traffic, trucks, as well as private vehicles. In addition to that, we have a commitment to Shell to also provide continuous access to the main roads for their tankers. We have investigated the movement of the tankers, and they have no real problem negotiating those corners. At Four Winds Drive, we will have a police officer, and we will have a police officer 24 hours on Murray-Ross and Keele. The period is about 3 weeks for that detour. The excavation depth is between 5 and 7 meters, and the excavation width for placing that 900 millimeter is plus minus 3 meters. So it is quite an excavation across Keele Street. However, we are certain that within 3 weeks we will have that work done. The other thing that you will see happening is that we will be demolishing a building right next to Shell. Shell is located on this side, and the Shell station, as you can see or know, is under demolition right now. We should be starting demolition of that building within 2 weeks. It forms part of the West Finch subway station. In the long term, and starting as soon as weather permits, we will be starting to construct our long-term detour. The detour will start north of Murray-Ross by reducing the northbound and southbound to one-lane traffic. And both 2 lanes of traffic, like one north, one south, will be running just beyond the curb of the southbound lanes. In other words, behind or west of the existing Keele Street. The reason for that, of course, is that this area here, which represents the footprint of the Finch West station, falls directly under Keele Street. So this long detour on Keele Street is going to be in effect essentially for the length of the project. In between, the Finch Street itself will be changed in location twice, but it will be decked so that the intersection of Finch and Keele will be continuously open. And that is all the update I was going to give you. That is important for the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. And again, if there's any questions, we'll be taking them at the end, okay? So our next presenter is Josie Lavita, who's the Director of Financial Planning at the City of Toronto. Josie joined the City Budget Office in the early 90s when all municipalities were responding to a recession and shrinking transfer payments. Since amalgamation, Josie has played a primary role in establishing the financial planning and management framework for the new city. As the Director of Financial Planning, she is responsible for combined capital and operating budget and provides financial management advice to senior management and council while moving the city's financial management and accountability framework to mature state. So, thank you, Josie.
Good evening. While they're fixing the cord, I'll just start with an introduction. As Tom mentioned, I'm Josie Lavita, Director of Financial Planning for the city. I report to the city's Chief Financial Officer, who reports to the city manager, and together the three of us are responsible for bringing forward a budget every year for committee and council approval. And through the year, we try to ensure that the city is managed well, that if there are any issues that have financial implications, that we're providing advice to the members of council in its committees and council so that they can make the decisions that they need to make as the board of directors, knowing what the costs and financial issues are for the city. So tonight I'm going to take you through the budget. I'm going to try and do it in 10 minutes. Excuse me if I don't quite do it in 10 because it is fairly complicated, but I want everyone to understand what the budget's about. Okay, now I can move. The city has two budgets, a capital budget and an operating budget. Go ahead, Matthias, that's fine. And so I'm going to provide you a bit of an overview of both. One is to fund the city's services that each of you receive on a daily basis, whether it's the garbage that's collected by your curb, or whether it's transit that you're taking, or whether it's the parks and recreational services that you achieve. Okay. So annually, the city sets a budget. It has to be balanced, means the dollars that we spend and the money that we get has to be equal to each other. Unlike the provincial or federal governments, they're actually allowed to have more expenditures than they have revenues, and that's why you hear in the news about them having a deficit, because they don't have to be balanced, but by law, we do. We always ensure that the monies that we have are used for the city services that we deliver through the operating budget. And there's no new money that comes to us after we collect your taxes. So we have to make decisions throughout the year. If there are emerging issues, we have to make decisions around what our priorities should be, and if we have to reallocate, we do. So this is just an example of all the city services that we provide at the highest level. You see these in your day-to-day life. Some of them are 24/7 that they're provided. And it's a wide range of services that municipal government provides for each of you daily. So when we started this budget process after the mayor was elected, he gave us 4 directions to follow. One was that we were to provide a budget that had no gaps in it, so we had enough money, which we have to by law, but to make sure that there was nothing in the budget that we weren't clear about how we were going to spend it. Secondly, they didn't want the budget to be any more than last year's amount, so that we could actually provide a 0% tax rate increase and no major cuts. So this just gives you an idea of how we deal with the budget and how we think about the budget. So at the very top, what we have here are the expenditures or the costs that we have to incur for all the services that we deliver. Then we have other revenue sources, and first we try to maximize all of those first. So whether money's coming from the province or from the federal government, particularly for some of our cost-shared programs where the provincial government provides us some money for delivering them, like public health or emergency services, We actually have some user fees that we charge for certain services where it actually benefits an individual, we charge that fee. If it benefits the entire citizenry, we don't charge a fee. And so we go through and look at all the fees we have. The very bottom, you see property tax. That's our funding source of last resort. Our goal, and my job in particular, is to make sure that we keep property taxes at the lowest possible after we've maximized all the other revenue sources. So for 2011, this is the entire city operating budget. It's $10.6 billion, and it has a bunch of pieces to it. So the little pie slices that you see are those for our water, the big pipes, for example, for our solid waste management, which is a collection of your garbage on a daily basis, and for our parking authority, which are the green peas and off-street parking. They all get money from their own fees, and therefore they don't require funding from property taxes. The balance of the budget, which is the big green piece, is $9.4 billion based on what council is going to consider starting tomorrow, and that's what you help fund. So just quickly on what we call the utility budget. This is Toronto Water. Toronto Water is responsible for making sure you have safe water that you're drinking and to rid itself of the waste that we find in our pipes. And all the small pies that you see over to the right is the breakdown of all the expenses so that we actually get the operation delivered daily. The green piece of the pie is essentially that amount of money that we raise to actually fund their capital budget, which is the replacement of sewer pipes and sewer lines, and to make sure that the facilities that provide you with the clean water get fixed. So for this year, what council will be considering tomorrow morning actually is a 9% increase year over year. The city has been in this program of 9% water rate increase over a 9-year period. We're currently in year 6 and have 3 years to go. And that's because all the increase in money that we are getting from each of you through your water bill is to help pay for all the sewer pipes that need to be replaced. Many of them are in fact between 50 and 100 years old, and particularly in cold weather like this past winter, you hear about the bursts, and we need to fix them. So this money is going towards our capital program, and it's about a 16-cent per household increase per day. When you compare us to our other municipalities in the area, we're the second lowest still. This is a major issue for lots of municipalities who have pipes that were put in many, many years ago, and we have requirements to ensure that those pipes are maintained in a state of good repair and that you have clean drinking water. On our waste collection side, you can see that almost all, except for that kind of gold piece of the pie, is money that we raise through your bin fees to pay for the collection of your garbage and then the transfer and disposal of it, so that we're ensuring that we're actually trying to get it out of the landfill and get it diverted into other means. Bin fees this year, since we've started this program where it's on a fee basis, is going up by 3%, and that's another issue that council will consider tomorrow. That's the first time since we started the bin fee program. But that money covers all of the operation as well as all the capital costs. And for capital, we essentially are trying to build facilities that'll make sure that we keep a lot of our garbage out of the landfill and diverted. And council has a goal to get 70% of all garbage collected out of the landfill. So now to the budget that you help pay for. Very busy slide. $9.4 billion. This is where all the money goes. It's lots of different areas, and I'll just try and highlight some of the key areas. So these to your left, which are the purple ones, those are what we call our cost-shared programs. Shelter, housing and supports, our hostel system and our shelters, public health, children's services or our daycare spaces, our long-term care homes, which we have 10 that the city operates, Toronto Employment and Social Services, which is known to some people as our Ontario Works, or in fact welfare for some of you, and emergency services are all things that the provincial government helps pay for. The issue for the city has been that they haven't been honoring their share of the cost, because we have agreements that in some cases they should pay 80% and we should pay 20, or 50 and 50, and they haven't been great at keeping their end of the bargain. But lately, we've gotten them to agree to some of that, and they're starting to take some of that back. But we do have major issues, and if you've been reading The Star over the weekend, you heard probably about how daycare is a huge issue for the city, and it's one that we'll be facing across the province. Down in the turquoise area are 3 emergency services, so police, EMS, and fire. They make up that part of the budget. If you go to the top, our friends from TTC, 1.5 billion of the city's budgets for our general TTC operations. And for transportation, which is roads and sidewalks and cleaning your snow, that's another 3% or 291 million. Off to this side here are some of your other key program areas where you would see any kind of services coming from us. So our public library, economic development and culture, parks, forestry and recreation. To our colleague here, municipal licensing and standards, 49 million, city planning and so on. In the green section, that's kind of like the corporate part. We have what we call governance and internal services. That's code for the cost of the mayor's office, city council, for the city solicitor, for all the internal services and all the oversight that the city provides in running the corporation, and that's where my salary comes from. Debt charges is a key piece. That's the cost. When we go out to, and you'll find out when we talk about capital, we borrow money. It's not direct property taxes that pay for the capital side of our program. So what we have to do is borrow money and then pay that back. So just like you buy a house and you have to get a mortgage, you have a requirement to pay both the principal and the interest, and that's the same for us. We pay both down for all the money that we have to borrow for our capital costs. The provincial and federal government, they don't have to do that. They just have to pay their interest. So we are always ahead of the game in terms of our ability to pay for our costs. Okay. So when we say, okay, so how do we pay for all this? The big slice, 38% property taxes. That's the part that we collect from you through your tax bills that helps pay for our budget. But we have other sources too. So we do get money from the provincial and federal government for those cost-shared programs. We do have user fees of 1.5 billion, but most of it is the TTC fare box. So that's built into there. There are fines and penalties, very small, but if, for example, if children are playing hockey on the street and they were to be fined, that's where that money would go. And then we have interest income because we do take our cash that we have in hand and we invest it and we get money from that, and that helps fund us. MLTT is the Municipal Land Transfer Tax, which is a tax that's a new one for the city in the last few years. That generates about 250 to 300 million for us, and it helps us actually make the property taxes lower. If we didn't have that, that 38% would actually be more like 40%. And then, of course, we have this last blue part there called prior year surplus. So if we don't spend all our money in one year, we actually bring it into the following year's budget, which we have to do by law, and we help pay for next year's budget. So that helps keep our costs down, helps keep your property taxes down by having cost constraint, hiring slow down, freeze on wages and other kinds of things. So when we just focus on where does your money go for each of these programs, let's just take a look at TTC as an example. Matthias, if you go back 2 slides for a second. So TTC at the top, 1.5 billion or 16.3. Now go 2. TTC at the top, 503 million. So the difference comes from the fare box, and that's the portion of your property taxes that actually go towards paying for the TTC service. So here's a nice little slide. What this tells you is if you were to look at the average assessment of a house, a 3-bedroom bungalow that's valued at about $427,000, that would typically translate into a $2,400 tax bill. So if we're to take that $2,400 and look at all the services that the city provides, what it's showing you is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, where that dotted line is, that 77% of your tax bill goes to paying for police, TTC, our debt charges, which is our mortgage payments on our capital program, fire, our housing, our shelter and housing system, and parks, forestry and recreation. All the rest of your tax bill goes for everything else the city does. So those are our big ticket items. That's operating, now capital. Okay? So on the capital budget side, we have a capital budget basically to pay for all the city's assets and buildings that we use to deliver our services. So like this building right here. And we have a 10-year plan for every area, so we know exactly what projects we're going to do over a 10-year period. And what we try to make sure is that the debt that we can afford, the amount that we can borrow, because paying it back in the operating budget means the higher that is, the less money that goes into the services that you need. So we always try to manage that debt, and we always look at what impact does that have on terms of moving forward so that we have the right services for you. So when we establish the plan every year, we want to make sure that we're investing in the city's highest priorities, that we're renewing our infrastructure to make sure that it's in a state of good repair, which is a major, major priority for the city and most cities. And you may have heard in the past about the infrastructure deficit, which is every municipality across Ontario, in fact Canada, who's very concerned that we maintain our assets in a state of good repair. Because if the place is falling down, you can't use it for your own programs and services, and that we're managing debt. So like the operating budget, we have our costs at the top, and then we have all these different sources of funding that we apply to specific projects, and then at the very last, we have debt. And on the capital side, it's our job to ensure that we're making the debt amount that we borrow every year as small as possible by trying to ensure that all the other ones are as high as possible. So, for example, we work with the provincial government, we continue to work with the provincial government to get more money for our TTC capital program. So on the capital side, just like on the operating, the pie is $22 billion over 10 years. And we have Toronto Water, which is our rates, our rate supported solid waste and Toronto parking, just like on operating, they pay for themselves. And then what we call the tax supported programs are those areas where the debt helps pay for it, and you help pay for it in terms of paying the mortgage payments. Okay. So on our Toronto Water capital plan area, the purple or blue, however you see that shade, that over 10 years is how much we're spending in an $8 billion budget on the plants and facilities. Those plants that keep your water clean and that process things. And in the cream or yellow area, that's all the underground. That's all the pipes that are going under the ground that need to be fixed. So most of the program is on that, and then we also have some money set aside for basement flooding issues, as well as water efficiency and stormwater management to make sure that we're not overflowing the storm system. On solid waste side, I think the important part is this blue part over here. That's a portion of the money that's being allocated to solid waste so they can actually build the facilities that'll help move the waste out of the landfill into other kinds of processing facilities, whether it's for recycling or it's your composting, because we're all trying to work towards getting 70% of the garbage out of the landfill. So on the part that you help support, I'm not picking on TTC, honestly, but it is the biggest piece. So TTC, 26% of the entire plan goes to the TTC, and when you add the Spadina Subway Extension project, that's another 18%. So close to half of this budget is going towards transit. When you add transportation, that brings that well over 60%. So that's the main focus of where the city's money goes. Then, of course, we have money that we're investing in our parks and recreation, in our Toronto Police, Union Station's a big project that we're trying to do downtown, revitalizing the whole station, and library and our waterfront as well. So when we fund it, again, we try to find all kinds of different funding sources, and then the last two that's to your left here, we have this thing called CFC. What that is money in the operating budget that helps, the tax money that we're actually putting aside to help pay for this, and it's what we call pay-as-you-go, so you're not borrowing. And then the difference, 33% is debt. That's $4 billion over 10 years, and we try to keep that number small. So that's the smallest amount we can get it to. It's about a third. That's our goal, is to keep it no more than a third. And then we have one other thing that helps keep it all in check. Council has a policy that says no more than 15% of our property taxes can actually be going towards the repayment of our debt. So this 2011 plan actually peaks up to almost 15%. That's because we are spending money and borrowing money so we can pay for the replacement of the city's streetcars, subway cars, and buses. And that's pushing us up right to that mark. But our goal is to try to keep it down. But because we have to replace all of the rolling stock, as the TTC calls it, it's very important that we get that into the system and get the old buses and streetcars off the road. So we have a 10-year plan, and then we have a 1-year budget where that's where they spend the money every year. So much like the 10-year plan, it looks exactly the same, with most of it going to TTC, Spadina, and transportation. And when we look at how we're spending it, half of it, the blue part of the pie, is going to state of good repair. So that's making sure that everything that we own is in a state of good repair. And same for the 1-year budget, it's got the same profile of financing as the 10-year plan, with about a third from debt. And that's it. So, thank you. That's one last thing. So tomorrow morning, council starts for 4 days. We've been through a major budget process since January 10th, and council will be deliberating for 4 days on these budgets, and it should be interesting. Councillor? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Josie. So our next speaker is Bill Blakes, District Manager of Municipal Licensing and Standards, and also Manager of the Rental Building Audit Program. Bill?
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm back in my old stomping ground. I lived in Ward 8 whenever I first came to Canada. I lived right at Jane-Finch, just down at, I think it was 2850 Jane Street I lived at. An apartment building. It was a lot better than where I came from, Belfast. So it was like the new world for me. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, okay. Municipal licensing and standards, we cover a lot of area. We cover animal services, the dog pounds, the licensing of businesses, the enforcement of bylaws, lawn, grass and weeds, waste, whatever. I'm also the citywide manager for a program called the MRAB program, they call it. It's the Multi-Residential Apartment Building Program. And it started a few years ago, at the end of 2008. We really got going at the beginning of 2009, because we've established that most of the apartment buildings in Toronto are going on 50 years old, maybe 60, some even up to 70. And that's old for Toronto, for apartment buildings especially. Probably where I come from, where a lot of you come from, a 50-year-old building's considered fairly new. But here, we started to find that the concrete design, the concrete structures, the services going to them were starting to deteriorate, especially if they weren't being maintained properly by the landlords. And therefore, we moved forward with a bit of an ambitious plan, because we didn't have any budget to add more staff. We didn't have any, money. So what we did, that's the easy way to put it, what we did was we used existing staff. So I've got 17 staff assigned to this building audit program citywide. It's not a large number, considering there's probably about 5,000 buildings in Toronto, rental buildings that we consider high-rise. We're doing about 220 a year. And the idea behind it is, the first year we did it, we had input from the community, input from the councillor, input from our own files, where we looked at buildings that had a history of a lot of complaints about maintenance issues, about non-compliance with the landlord. And we found that was a reasonable way to look at which buildings we should target for audit. Over the years, we've found that there's some buildings out there, and there's some residents of buildings out there who are absolutely terrified of their landlord. They're afraid to report any issues in case they get kicked out. They're afraid to report their problems to the city. And many of the buildings we came across was by pure luck. Whenever we're doing a building audit, what we do is we'll send notification out to the building that we're attending, and the surrounding buildings around it, saying that on a certain date we're going to have our mobile office outside that building. If you care to come down, we can give you information on what your rights are as a tenant from a maintenance point of view. You know, you are entitled to proper heat for your rent every month. You're entitled to proper maintenance, that your taps are working, there's water coming from your taps, your ceiling isn't falling down, you're not infested with roaches and bed bugs. And what we found is, not necessarily from the building we were doing the audit on, but from surrounding buildings where maybe in our records we had 1 or 2 complaints in a year. In fact, the councillor suggested one building to us, and whenever I checked the records, we had 2 complaints from 2005, and I thought to myself, I'll admit this now, you know, what are we doing this building for? You know, we don't get many complaints from it, but whenever we showed up, we had about 75 people come down to our van. A lot of them didn't know how to complain, didn't know I or my department existed, and whenever my staff went into the building, they were amazed that we hadn't had more complaints. The garage was, there was mold in the garage, the garbage chutes were ripped from the walls, there was graffiti everywhere. It was a nightmare. And it took some encouragement, but I know the staff are pretty proud of what they've done to that building now. It's, they said it looks like a new condo now, because the landlord, he got the message. He got the message that we weren't going away, that we were going to take him to court if necessary, we were going to get that building fixed up no matter what. And he complied. Fortunately not all the landlords are as easy to get on with this, and we do end up in court a lot. What I'm going to do, I'm going to give you some numbers. This was, we've done 413 buildings. We've inspected 413 buildings, high-rise buildings to date, rental buildings. We've issued just under 2,300 orders. It doesn't seem a lot, but that accounts for almost 25,000 violations that my staff have notified or have noticed in the buildings. These deficiencies include your underground garage, some stuff that you might notice yourself, but my staff are well trained and they'll go into an underground garage just to determine what the condition of it's like. They may find exposed reinforcing bar, they may find falling concrete. Some of the balconies in the older buildings, the 50, 60-year-old buildings, are starting to deteriorate where we need to get engineers involved. They'll come and tell us what needs to be done. We pass it on to the landlord in the way of an order telling them what to do. And eventually they'll be fixed. There's no question about it, they will be fixed. Sometimes you may think it's taking an awful long time to get it fixed, but there's an appeal process that landlords can go through. There's obviously some major repairs that will take up to a year to conduct, and we'll allow that. If we, heaven forbid, get before the courts, that can tie us up a bit, because if I charge somebody today, I'm probably looking well into the summer before we even get there for the first appearance. But let's say that our prosecutions, we don't end up there very often. We have prosecuted 50 landlords so far. We've led 50 charges. That's not bad considering the amount of inspections that we've done. Very briefly, the building audit doesn't take away anybody's ability to call 311 and make a complaint about the premises they live in. You can call, we moved over to the 311 system last year, where you don't have to think about calling, where do I live? Do I live in North York? Do I live in Scarborough? You dial 311 and you can make your complaint. Your complaint's registered, and this goes, you know, you don't have to live in an apartment building. You can complain about any bylaw violation that we would deal with through 311. You're given a tracking number. You'll get a response as to what the status of the complaints are. And if you do live in a rental apartment building, if you want copies of the orders that we issue to the landlord or on your particular suite, all you got to do is ask, and we'll send you a copy of the order, right? And there you can keep track of what's going on and what the status of your complaint is. I've got some brochures with me that show you the complaint process. It's an easy process to follow. What we would ask before you make a complaint, tell your landlord, first of all, there's nothing worse than my staff going up and saying, look, Mrs. So-and-so, she doesn't have any hot water. I want you to fix it. And the landlord says, well, if I'd have known that, I'd have fixed it anyway. So the idea is, report the problems to your landlord, keep notification of it. If it isn't complied with in a reasonable period of time, bring it to us, and we'll take it from there. And if you have any questions later, I'll see you outside. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you also for auditing more than 20 buildings in our ward. And we've been actually getting a lot of positive feedback from tenants. So there's been a lot of buildings that are being turned around thanks to the program. So, okay, and finally, Councillor Anthony Perruzza wants to share a few words with you. So, Councillor, wherever you want to go.
Thanks again, Tom. I guess we're going to be asking everyone who presented to come up, and so we'll be able to field a few questions. And I want to personally thank Ted, Josie, and Bill, and I know Inspector Riviere is here from 31 Division as well. If Inspector, you'd like to join us up front in case there are any questions, or it's okay. So we'll do that in a second. When we first thought about scheduling this meeting, it was just simply to provide updates to all of you on some things that are important to us. The subway is an ongoing activity in the ward. There will be perpetual disruptions in terms of traffic and how we are going to move people around, both at Keele and Finch, at Steeles, eventually at York, and down at Shepherd. So there'll be lots of activity at those places, and so traffic will be redirected, diverted. The roads will be narrowed, and I thought we would get the TTC here to provide those ongoing updates, so you have some sense of what's going on. And we'll talk a little clearer. I don't know if some of that what was explained was clear to you in terms of how we're going to get around that intersection at Keele and Finch while they continue to build out Tangiers Road connected to Murray Ross and so on. So that's something we're going to talk about. We also wanted to mention very briefly the budget, and I know that a lot came at you, and some of us who have been following this process for years and years and years still have difficulty figuring out what all those numbers mean on those pie charts. But I just want to say this to all of you. I know that you have some interesting questions around the budget. The staff is here to answer technical questions. They're not the ones, to blame for taxes, for water increases, for garbage, or any of those things. They do what the city council, what the mayor and the council ask them to do. And then it's up to the mayor and the city council, as Josie just indicated, starting tomorrow morning at 9:30, we have a long meeting scheduled that runs tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, Monday, and Tuesday if we need to go back and so on. Over the next 4 or 5 days, we will be approving that budget. And that's where we, as your representatives, will agree and disagree on certain things, and we'll all be chatting about that. And if you want to have a political discussion about the budget, then those are questions which I will field, and please don't go after these folks. Their job is just simply to do as we ask them to do, as they've indicated. And the last thing that we wanted to talk about, and it's a project that's something that we're going to continue to work towards and fight for, and that's the expansion of the program that we created in MLS to audit buildings in the ward and throughout the city, and to try to make rental housing, as well as Toronto community housing, better for people both here and across the city. That's a program that's so very important to us. It's a program which we started, and it's a program which we would like to see grow and become better and better and better, so that housing for people becomes better and better and better as we move forward. You know, I guess through answering some of the questions, we will get to some of the information that you want. So if I can ask those folks to come back up, and I guess Tom will point out who can ask the questions, where the microphones are, and he'll try to maintain some order for the meeting as well. Okay. So. Again, thank you all very much for coming, and I hope that we address we're able to address many of your questions and many of your concerns tonight.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so we have a mic on each side here. So if you have a question, just so that everybody will able to better hear you, just come down and use the microphone. If there's some issues with you getting down the stairs, then I guess you could project your voice from where you are. So, okay, so I guess we'll take the first question right here.
I'm Bob McElhenney. I live on Hucknall Avenue, and I have two issues. I'll try to be brief. The one issue was mentioned, basement flooding. Many of us in this room have experienced basement flooding, two major ones in recent years. We were told that on our street, the widening of the pipes, the city pipes, would be completed in 2010. Then we were told that they might be completed in 2012. And I've heard recently that in the projected budget for 2012, this funding for this program might be dropped. Now, this is a major issue for many of us in this area. I don't expect any of you to be able to provide some expertise on that, but I just want to let you know, I'm speaking more to the audience here, we've got to persuade the politicians and the people who make decisions that this is still very much an issue that we have in this area. The second thing is, if I might, on the question, we're expecting to come to this meeting and discuss Finch Avenue West transit update. That hasn't been mentioned. So, some of us were asked to, by email, to write a petition in support of the Transit City Plan rather than Mayor Ford's vision. Let me share with you what Mayor Ford emailed me in response in terms of his priorities. Shepherd Avenue first, followed by Eglinton. The old plan projected the Shepherd Avenue LRT opened by 2015. My goal is to open a subway along Shepherd Avenue, that is from Yonge Street, to replace the Scarborough RT. Anyway, what I want to say is that everything that Mayor Ford has mentioned does not include Finch Avenue, in fact does not include the whole northwest of this city from Yonge Street West. So we have a major issue in terms of what the future planning for transit is for our whole neighborhood and part of the city. And I would very much appreciate if our councillor would respond to what the heck is happening with the city's transit plan and the mayor's ill-gotten plans for the future.
First, to the basement flooding, and Josie can correct me if my memory is wrong. In 2010, the basement flooding budget, I believe, capital budget is about $35 million. In 2011, it's being taken up to about $56 million. I don't remember all of these numbers, but I think that's the increase. So while some of the projects are being moved around in terms of their timing. We're actually increasing the budget so we get more of that work done. It's just a question of when the projects are ready to go in terms of engineering and some of the other issues that water has been working with. So the budget is actually increasing for the water works repairs to deal with the basement flooding. And when that project is going to come on, I'm not quite sure. Okay. So Matthias tells me that there was a newspaper article that talked about budget cuts to the water budget? Oh, the water budget, but not the basement flooding program. So that is actually being increased. Finch Avenue LRT, you're right. That's another thing that came on lately that we wanted to talk about. Many of you will know that the TTC for the last 3 or 4 years has been planning a transit expansion program called Transit City. Transit City had a line that, 2 lines, one that runs from Yonge Street all the way to Humber College and eventually the airport. That's a light rail, I don't know, we call it an LRT. We don't have, it's not streetcar. We don't have LRT in the City of Toronto, not in the way that these lines were projected to be. So there was a line that runs from Yonge Street all the way to the airport eventually, and one from on Jane Street from Bloor to Steeles. The new mayor has, along with some other lines as well. There's a line on Eglinton as part of Transit City. There's another line that runs from the end of the Shepherd subway all the way to the Scarborough Town Centre. Again, was expected to be an above-ground LRT line. The new mayor has asked the TTC to go back and look at that plan, and in that review, he wants to build a subway extension at the end of the Shepherd line to the Scarborough Town Centre, replace the Scarborough, what's the Scarborough above ground line called? Pardon? Yeah, replace that with a subway as well, and do the Shepherd subway, and essentially not do the Finch line and not do the Jane Street line eventually. And I agree with Bob. I think we need to push and fight for those things, because we can't stay another 10 years. It would be wonderful to be able to build a subway under Finch. There is no money for a subway under Finch. Now they're saying there's no money for an above-ground transit line. We need to push for that. We need to fight for that. And that's why on the weekend we launched a campaign. We started to go door to door and collect signatures and have people, bounce through the email system to the mayor's office, and to put pressure on both the mayor and the TTC to bring that line back on, because I believe it's very, very important. And I hope that answers your question, Bob.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, Bob. Next question.
Hi, Mr. Perruzza. My name is Mariano Martino. I live on Lamberton Boulevard, close to Hunknall and Sentinel. When I was a kid, there was a strip mall there, and it was a focal point of our community. If we wanted groceries, there was a grocery store there. There was a place where you could get haircuts, dry cleaning done, rent videos, a hardware store. It was pretty much a focal point for the whole community. Now there's, as you know, townhouses being built there. Personally, I'm angry that these townhouses are being built there, because the way they look will not match all the houses in the surrounding community. The houses in the surrounding area were constructed in the 60s and 70s, and they look different from townhouses built, like, for example, near York University. And what I'm asking you is there any way you can stop these townhouses from being built and put back either a grocery store at least, or a strip mall once again, or a big store that can provide services to the community that we need. Because if these townhouses were not built to begin with and should not have been approved to begin with, I wouldn't have to get into my car and drive somewhere to get groceries when I could have gone and walked there, as well as all the other seniors in the area who live in the houses, as well as there's 4 schools in the area with kids. It's a family community area that needs a decent grocery store. Right now, what I have to go to get my groceries is No Frills. That's the closest place to go, and it's half the size of a regular grocery store. And you're the guy in charge. You have the ability to say yay or nay to make this happen. So my question is, can you please make this happen? Can you please do it so that our community can have something that will serve us rather than we serving this developer who's doing these townhouses? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. I don't know if many of you, and I see that there's some people here from Dundee as well. That parcel of land has a very, very long and sordid history. It was rezoned before I was elected councillor. The lands are held privately. They've been sold a couple of times now to different folks. The owners that currently have them intend to proceed, as far as I know. I would welcome if they came back in with a plan that said they wanted to redo retail on that site completely. We would absolutely 100% consider, and I think the community would be supportive of that. I would be supportive of that. But barring the owners coming back with that kind of plan, what they have the zoning on the property to do is, I believe it's 46 or 47 townhouses and a 10,000 square foot plaza. 10,000 square feet, I don't know if that will accommodate a grocery store but there will be some stores or some retail put back into that site. To what level, I'm not sure. But absolutely, if they decided to come back and because they didn't want to make their housing work and they wanted to do retail, we would absolutely 100% entertain that, and I think the community would be supportive of it as well as me. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Catherine Morris. I live on Sentinel Road, and I would say over the last 6 to 8 weeks I've been very much impacted by the construction, just basically because of the traffic that has backed up on Keele. My question is, I guess my concern when I heard you talk about the rerouting of the traffic, particularly the trucks from the Shell, has there been any discussion with Shell? And I'm not familiar with the layout of their property, but I do know that some of those vehicles exit onto Finch Street right across from Chesswood. And has there been any discussion with Shell to ask those vehicles to use that mode of rerouting rather than coming out and then, like from what I understand, you're saying they'll come on to Murray Ross and then down Sentinel, where we've already got then the rerouting of the traffic from York University. And it really just creates quite a gridlock because there's no place for anybody to go.
Yeah. We have an agreement with Shell that we have to give them access to Keele Street, and to the best of my knowledge, their major gate is on Murray Ross heading out towards Keele. Now the detour that we're talking about only goes to Columbia. It does not go as far as Sentinel. Okay, and the trucks will not be permitted to go any further than Columbia, because just as the area right now is not allowed for commercial traffic.
So then they come down to
So
Four
they will
Winds
come
Drive?
Murray Ross, they will turn left onto Columbia
Yeah.
before they get to Center, over to Four Wing Drive, and then back to Keele Street. Okay, it's a very short detour. It's a 2 series of lefts.
And what volume are we looking at in terms of a daily basis?
They run very often. They run almost every 10, 15 minutes a truck. So it's the maximum time that we need for that is about 3 weeks. And then they'll be back on Keele Street. As soon as we have enough lane width to turn the trucks again onto Keele, we will convert the trucks back down Keele Street.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Next question.
Good evening. My name is Peter. We are old people and we're living in Toronto community housing. And we have a lot of people in my building shaking cold. Window is single window. Balcony door bring air condition, heater is not working, balcony pen come down, they say no money. No money. They do some window and they do how they like, not by supposed to go from up to down or down to up. No, they choose some people because we have one representative is here, is a good person and he's with right, and we have a lot of people here, but we have one representative with one woman, her name is Sylvia Bramo. They do what they like. And the super. They do some window and they say the money is finished. And people shaking cold and die. Okay? Tenant put me to decide for any money to spend it in the building. Sylvia, she called me in the night, 10 o'clock, the day before. She come to me, Peter, if you can't go, only sign here. I say, Sylvia, I don't agree to change tile of laundry room and paint laundry room. I swear to God, I swear Jesus, I swear my kids, nothing wrong with tile and paint of laundry room. I told you we have many problem, but tile, I hope I kiss your shoes, all of you, to come now, and we have a lot of people to go there. If any wrong with tile or paint, put me and these people, put me in the jail. But if not, these people have to be charged. They doesn't like to do this. They put this money, and I went to vote. They told me, I will bring this representative with me, the good one. Say no. I was representative before, and I have 28 certificates from government of Canada, and without thanks, because I work hard, I work for free, take people to the hospital, help him, everything. We have to be clean and right. This government, this country, they bring us here to be clean and right, not to be play and do something. They put this money, I get to the vote, and I get 55,000 to do the window, to do the balcony. I swear to God, my balcony, this is 3 years. Paint is coming down. I can use it. Now the bird use it. The bird, they make egg, they make bird in my balcony. And shit of, I can open the balcony, I can smell because it's shit of bird. Why for this no money? Oh, sorry. Why for laundry room tile is lot 5, they put 55, I get this 55,000. I vote for 55,000 and I talk to the people in the meeting. I don't need it for this, I need it for this. When we
Sorry,
get this
Peter.
money,
Peter,
when we get this money,
if I can interrupt for a second.
When
Peter,
we get
would you
this
be able to
money-
ask the question?
They put it for tile. They put it for tile. This 55,000, they put it back for tile. And when I talk, they send me caricature that I be killed. If I doesn't close my mouth, I be killed. And I ask the tenant, all the tenant, they doesn't agree with me. So I ask you, all of you, I kiss your shoes, all of you, to come now and see if I am wrong and the representative is wrong and these people wrong, put us in the jail. But if we are not wrong, well, you have to do something. Thank you very much, and sorry to bother you.
Maybe I can address that somewhat. Out of the properties that we audit, we make sure that we audit 20% that are owned by TCHC. To us, TCHC is treated exactly the same as any other landlord. If they don't comply, we'll do what's necessary to have them comply. For individual issues, if it's with respect to windows, doors, ceramic tiles, whatever, you can call 311 and make a complaint to that through that number, and an inspector, an investigator will come out and check your complaint. But as I said, for the audit program, we ensure that each year that 20% of the buildings that we audit are TCHC.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Peter. Any other questions?
I have 3 questions.
Oh, just a short and then.
Actually, I'm sorry, would you be able to come to a mic then so everybody can hear you? I'm also going to ask that of respect for everybody in the room, if we can try and make our questions as short as possible as opposed to a statement. Thanks.
Yeah, let me finish the questions, then you can start answering. Regarding the, I think we'll be hosting the Pan Am Games soon. What's going to be the impact on that, with regards to that on our property taxes? How is that going to be funded for Councillor Perruzza? And for Bill, I want to know about rooming houses in, you know, ordinary subdivisions, you know, ordinary community, not high-rise, just rooming houses within subdivisions of semi-detached, detached, townhouses, that kind of thing. And, but illegal, not legal, what needs to be done, that kind of thing. And for Josie, in terms of social services payments and the budget, how is social services funded? Is it by the city? And does the city have any program in place where lots of people are collecting social service payments? Couples, they're married, they have husbands and wives and children, but they may run under different names, and they work for cash, or they work at home, collect social services, do babysitting, do sewing, and they have husband and stuff like that. Just for my knowledge, I want to know as a citizen that it concerns me and worries me.
Thank you for the question. I believe the Pan Am monies that the city has approved are somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 million now. 90. In fact, they got to 90 because of a site that we have to clean up in Scarborough for the aquatic, for the pool, for some of the aquatic stuff. But the Pan Am Games in this area, it's going to be very exciting. The games come here in 2015. They're like a mini version of the Olympics, okay? With the competing countries, I believe it's just the Commonwealth countries. What we get here at York University is a magnificent array of sporting events. York University, as a university, is going to be building out its track facility. They're going to be a national center of excellence for track and field because of the Pan Am Games, and the university itself is doing that. What the city is contributing to that really is transit. We're contributing a subway, which we were building in any case, and we're contributing some of the other infrastructure to get to the games. But in this area, it's going to be a very, very exciting project, and people are going to be really pleased with what's going to happen here as it relates to the Pan Am Games. Joseph.
I'll do my best to address the rooming house issue, but specific to North York, or former North York. I'm the manager in Scarborough at the moment, but I was the manager in North York probably 6 years ago. Rooming houses, it's, let's say there's no short answer to your question. Rooming houses are permitted in other parts of the city, like the former Toronto, the former York, former East York, but to the best of my knowledge, they're not permitted in Scarborough or North York. Limited permissions granted in Etobicoke. The difficulty with rooming houses, and that's why I'm saying it's not an easy answer, there's so many other things that you may think is a rooming house, but it's not. You can have a second suite in your home, and you can rent out your second suite. In Scarborough, you can have 2 lodgers, and you can have a second suite. The definition of family changed. So if you get a bunch of students living in a single family dwelling, and they live as a family unit. And what I mean by living as a family unit, they pull their money together and pay the landlord for use of the home. That's considered a family unit. The true definition of a rooming house is that if you rent a room and you pay your rent individually, like if you rent room 1, your buddy rents room 2, you don't collect the money together, but you pay the landlord your $100, your $50 or whatever it is a week. That's a rooming house, and those are not permitted. In Scarborough, it's a little bit different. We have what you call, people are starting to basically hotels operating out of a single family dwelling in some streets, and it caters to people who've just arrived in Canada and they stay in these locations until they can buy their own home. Our main concern with those is that a lot of the renovations have been done. We had a prosecution there last year where we found 18 bedrooms had been built in a single family dwelling, 2,200 square feet. No approvals from the fire department, no safety features like smoke alarms, smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors. And the courts looked pretty seriously on that. We got a $70,000 fine on a guilty plea, and that sort of blew us all away. We thought we'd be lucky if we got $5,000 if we fought for it. But so the courts look very seriously upon illegal rooming houses as such. But it's difficult to prove what actually is a rooming house. We have to gain access. We may have to get a warrant to go in. And the evidence, we can't accuse anybody of anything unless we've got the evidence to prove it. And gathering the evidence to actually prove a rooming house is cumbersome. We have a rooming house team that operates citywide, and they're dealing with what we know as the operators of these illegal rooming houses. Some people will buy houses, turn them into rooming houses, and are making quite a bit of money from it. So we have a team that's looking after those particular individuals at the moment. And I'm not sure about the individual complaint that you're talking about. Maybe we can talk offline about it, and I can pass it on to the area manager, who's a colleague of mine, and I can certainly fill him in on what your concerns would be. Okay. And your third question was?
So the city has what we call the Toronto Employment Social Services Program, and it has amongst its focuses both the disbursement of the social assistance checks, as well as employment programs. So the idea, the focus has been that as people are on the social assistance, that the city is spending more time focusing on trying to get them off of the caseload numbers and into employment. But the budget for that is about $1.2 billion in total. The city shares about $200 million. I think I mentioned earlier that we cost share. So at one point in time, I think it was around the late 90s when the Mike Harris administration, up until that point, it was not funded on the property tax bill. It was all funded by income tax through the province. That the cost, a portion of that cost was downloaded to the city, so that the tax property bill actually helped fund it. And it was only in Ontario where that happens. In most other, places around the Canada and North America and elsewhere in the state, in the country, and the world actually, that's considered to be something that should be funded from the income tax revenue source. So the city, along with all municipalities across Ontario, started working with the province to say that should not be a property tax funded item, because when there's a recession, the costs go up, right? Caseload goes up, but our property taxes don't go up by the same value. So in the last couple of years with the recession, what we had was a situation where we had about 96,000 cases every month over the year, and we rose up to 105,000 cases. And the difference the city had to pay was over $40 million. And so that's just too much for a city to bear just on funding through the property tax bill. So anyway, the long short is that it's coming off the bill because the province agreed that it was not the right place, the McGuinty government. So every year what we see is part of the cost actually coming off the property tax bill and being replaced by provincial funding. So it'll go down to zero shortly is the answer. In terms of the actual cases, there's about one case worker for every 100 cases. So they have to manage that 100 cases, and part of their responsibility is the application, making sure people are eligible, delivering the checks, dealing with the employment opportunities, and then there's an audit function as well. But you know, they're short in terms of their capacity, but the program area does have a program where they do review areas where eligibility might be an issue. So they have like an audit program. But if you know of items or situations where you think that people are not eligible, you can call 311 as well or contact the offices there and they would be happy to help you. Okay? I'm not completely sure, but I would think probably not, right? Depends. Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of, yeah, I don't know all of the criteria because the criteria is set out by the province, by the provincial government. It's not set out by the city. We can only do, as it relates to social assistance, what the province directs us to do. The funding relationship, as Josie mentioned, before Mike Harris was completely and totally funded by the provincial government and the federal government in collaboration through general revenues, income taxes. After Mike Harris, when it was downloaded to the city, to the municipality, I believe the relationship became 80-20. 80% the province pays, 20% the property tax picks up. However, the city doesn't have any ability to set any rules about qualification, who gets it, who doesn't get it. It's completely provincially driven, mandated, and so on. So can someone collect if they meet the provincial guidelines, meaning you have no money in the bank, you have no equity in the property, you don't know what circumstances the people are living in the houses and so on, or what their application looks like, then yes, they can qualify under certain circumstances. But again, we don't have any ability to either say yay or nay to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for the questions. So we're going to be wrapping up soon. We have 3 more questions. Okay, and following that, again, we have to be out of here at 9. So we have some booths up here, and if you have any personal issues, again, we'd be happy to chat with you and help you resolve them. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lucy Wan. I'm living 313 Maras Parkway. My point is, I think city government should care about something major, something important, not something minor. It's like somebody's windows broken, somebody's fighting to each other. That's for something minor. You know why? Because on one hand, and the politician encourage us, just told us, like, see how much budget, right? So that means they try to save up every single penny from our taxpayer, right? So on the other hand, they encourage people, you guys call 911, call 311, call this, call that. By my experience, I found out people just call police officer, call 911 for something minor, for something funny, or somebody steal somebody's apples, somebody steal somebody's bananas, for something minor. With the police service, allows the police to show up just for nothing, for something really, really minor. You know, every time police show up, and then taxpayer pay, right? Pay their gas, pay their time, pay their salary. So, and somebody calls 311, say to see, oh, this socket is not the right place, just one inch is far from whatever they should be. This is just, I think, why not let the market just be natural? Just like for example, like the rooming houses in so-called rooming houses right beside York University. See, city government cannot even block a gay. You gay, they like each other, let them get together, okay? So landlord like tenants, tenants like landlord, and they like each other. Why block them? When Peter was here, city councillor 3 years ago, we had a meeting here, and I remember Anthony gave a speech. Everybody clapped, right? If you guys still remember, my name is Lucy. Personally, in my opinion, just let it be natural. See, you can't block the weather. Today is raining, tomorrow is sunny, the day after tomorrow is windy. How can you block everything? You block more, the more you block, the more taxpayer got to pay. And we got to pay every single penny, every single dollar for government service, right? That's what my point is, just pay attention, just to make more factories, make more companies, find everybody job, so that don't pay somebody, encourage, oh, I'll pay you welfare, I'll pay you welfare. I put you in the jail because small fighting, and then when you get out, give you welfare. Of course they're not gonna work, right? You encourage people to work, make money, not pay them. We're not supporting baby. Teach people how to catch the fish, not give people fish. Is that right?
Okay.
Well, I think the question was this, if I understood it correctly. The city has a whole bunch of services it provides. So you as citizens sometimes call MLS inspectors, and an inspector comes out to inspect, and the taxpayers pay. We all pay for that. If someone steals someone's apples or someone's bananas and they call the police, I think, respond, and we all collectively pay. Yes, we do. Do I believe that we have a higher level of service than what people commonly ask for? I'm not sure that we do. First of all, I don't think that the police often respond. Maybe if Inspector Riviere can speak to what exactly the police respond to when they are called and how it is that they respond. Because I know they have a protocol in terms of priorities and what they have to get to first, what they have to get to second and third and fourth and so on. So.
What a way of deflecting the question, eh? I am absolutely sure that question had nothing to do with the police, but in any event, the councillor is absolutely right. We do prioritize our calls for service. Our main function, obviously, is to ensure that we provide safe and secured communities and neighborhoods. So if there is a call for service that falls within that jurisdiction, we certainly will respond. We prioritize our calls as to, like everybody else, we got to deliver efficient and effective service. You saw the impact that our service has on your budget, your tax-paying funds. So we do have to be efficient as possible. But the prioritizing of the calls simply means that we identify what calls we respond to in a timely fashion, etc., etc. So it doesn't mean that we won't respond to the call. Obviously, if there's a criminal act involved in a call, then we are obligated to respond. I think one of the questions she was probably alluding to was the fact that 911 is being misused, but that's a totally different, I totally agree with her, but that's a different topic and probably for a different arena. But the misuse of 911 obviously also has a financial impact, and I'm hopeful that's what she was alluding to. Hopefully I answered the question.
Actually, I'm sorry, if I can interrupt. I have a gentleman here. He's been waiting for a couple turns. So.
Hi, my name is Steve Fullington. I'm one of the residents at 15 Tobermory. I just have a real short question. I appreciate you, Josie Lavita, for giving us the breakdown of the budget. I was wondering if we have access, as the people have access to it on a regular basis and where we can find it. And I was wondering, even on a smaller scale, to our ward or our neighborhood, if we have access to see how the budget goes in our neighborhoods. And I actually want to know if I could specifically get the spreadsheet that you showed up there.
Yes, yes, and yes. So everything that we do at the city regarding the city's budget sits on our website. So if you go to www.toronto.ca / in this case it's budget 2011, every presentation that's been made to committee and council, every briefing note that a councillor's requested a more in-depth understanding of an issue, What I do with my staff is that every budget that you've seen in the slices of the pie, they all have very detailed notes around what's in it, why it went up, why it went down, what are some of the key issues. So we call them analyst briefing notes. Everything is on the website for your use. So you have access to all that information on a regular basis. So that's available to you. And I'm not sure which spreadsheet you'd like, but if you let me know, I can make sure that you get that. Secondly, in terms of your ward or neighborhood, on the capital budget side, it's absolutely easy to do because every capital project is categorized by the ward that it's in. There are also some projects, of course, that are what we call citywide because they have a citywide interest or impact that might be in your ward. For example, part of the Spadina project, while it's a citywide initiative, it does affect the ward. The operating budget's kind of more difficult to do. We don't look at the budget in pieces on the operating because you wouldn't take a hydro bill or the cost of a service and say this neighborhood gets so much. The key issue on the operating budget side is to understand what service level you're getting and the cost of that service level. Because in some cases that service level is constant throughout the whole city. In other cases that service level might vary by the neighborhood or the density or the geographic form. So for example, here in North York, in the former North York, you get windrow clearing. In parts of the downtown city core, window clearing isn't possible because the roads are so small, there's parking on the roads, so they just physically can't do it there. That's a difference in service level. So that's what's key, is to understanding that, because we try as a city where we can to provide uniform service levels, okay?
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't understand service levels.
So for example, a service level description, so if you were to ask, how many times a week does my garbage get picked up? So the fact that the city picks up recycling every other week, collection weekly, that would be the service level. If in terms of emergency services, they have 24-hour, 7-day response, and they try to get to you in, say, 8 minutes, 69 seconds, which is the response time, that's your service level. Okay?
Thanks.
I just want to add a little something, because I saw Josie's presentation, okay, on the budget. If you were to punch up the budget today and look at the capital budget, you would see a Spadina to York subway extension worth $2.6 billion, okay? While we are getting an investment in this community of $2.6 million, 6 stations, 8.4 kilometers of subway. The $2.6 million you wouldn't see by that chart doesn't all break down to the City of Toronto, and it's not all property tax. So it's a one-third, one-third, one-third relationship. Okay, so 1/3 the city, 1/3 the province, 1/3 the federal government. So if you break the two, let's say 2.5, because mathematically, well, actually 2.6 too, right? It breaks down to the 1/3. The city portion is essentially 50% of 1/3. It's not even a full 1/3, because we share the 1/3 with York Region. So when you look at that and you say, wow, this area is getting a huge investment, and people here say, oh my God, my property taxes. Well, that's not the case, okay? The case, picture it this way. It's like someone comes along and says to you, why don't we put $100,000 or a $99,000 addition to your home? You get the value of the addition, but it's only going to cost you 50% of 1/3. That's really what we are getting. So $33,000 comes for your addition, just to simplify it, would come from the federal government. $33 would come from the provincial government, and of that $33 that's your share, 50% of that, $16 would be coming from York Region. So for $16,000, you get $100,000 worth of value addition to your home. That's what we are getting here, by way of getting the subway. And I think that it's going to be quite the legacy for all of us. So that's what you wouldn't normally see, though, in that budget, okay? All right.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Steve, for the question. So we're taking our last question here. We're already 10 minutes over. If you have any additional questions, the councillor will be available to speak to you directly, but we're already 10 minutes over, and we have to be out of here by 9 o'clock anyways. So, okay? So, go ahead.
Okay, my name is Daniel Cassidy. I live at number 5 San Romano Way. My question is to do with policing. I've noticed within the last month or two there's an increasing of young people from the high schools congregating at McDonald's just ordering, and they're trying to pick fights and harass customers there.
That's a valid complaint, and we have what we call as a matter of fact, we have 2 officers behind you. They both belong to a community response unit. And these officers are tasked with receiving complaints like that and acting on it. It's a simple complaint. You can simply call 416-808-3119. 3119.
Okay.
And your complaint will be responded to in a timely fashion. That's a very simple complaint. I thank you for bringing it to our attention, and I can assure you that if you were to call that number, it will be action, and you will be kept abreast as to what actions have been taken.
Okay, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Well, okay, you know what, I'll allow 2 quick questions, because I see 2 people here that have been waiting, but again, we'll keep it brief. Hopefully these are general questions. If they're personal, please ask them at the end, okay? So, gentleman was waiting here at the mic, if you want to ask a quick question.
Yeah, very simple. Good evening, everybody. This is Giorgio Cassini. I live in 3-4 Winds Drive, the very corner. It is 2 simple questions. One, it is related to the extension of the subway, and the other one is consequences of the conversation that we heard early this evening. Point 1, the extension of the subway. Where is going to be the entrance of Finch West Station, because my balcony is very close to the entrance, and how deep it is that the train passing by is going to the shake on my bedroom. In other words, point 1. The second question is consequences of the conversation that we had at the beginning. I saw Perruzza mainly. I saw the extension of the approval of construction south of Finch on Sentinel. And the guy was complaining that he didn't have enough space for, okay, or whatever. But this still, north of Finch, still on Sentinel, there is 8 buildings being approved for extension in the major building over there. Don't you really think that is too much of a concentration in the area? Considering that the subway is coming up, imagine what big chaos between Keele and Sentinel is going to be. End of the conversation. Thank you.
Okay, as far as the entrances go to Finch Station, 1 is right next door to the bank on the west side, and north of Finch. There is a bank on the corner, and there's an entrance
west side of
on the
Keele and
west
Finch.
side, just north of the bank.
Okay,
Right.
so no
There's
more
one
close,
entrance.
because on the plan that I had over here,
Yeah.
it is designed just behind my property. Doesn't make any sense, you know. I
And
can see
the other one is on the other side of Keele Street, on the east side of the Keele Street.
where the collector is going to be on the other side.
The what?
The collector, where is going to be?
The collector.
Yeah,
The station. The station itself
collecting, yeah.
is right under the middle of Keele Street.
Is that
The
in
tracks,
the middle
the
of-
tracks, and the station and the trains run right underneath.
Yes, I know.
Okay.
It's coming in through.
Okay.
Main entrance is on the east side.
On the east.
That's the main entrance.
On the east side.
Yeah,
Okay.
and on the east side is also a bus loop as well, incorporated into the station.
Thank you.
Okay.
What about the condensation of population between the two areas? North
what?
and south of Finch on St. Down, Mr. Perruzza now.
Uh-huh.
It's been approved. There's going to be the construction is going to be developed in both sides.
Yeah, there's been a plan in the works for, I guess, the last 5 years or so. A plan to intensify within the Four Winds buildings. That's what you're talking about, right? Correct. The City Council and the City of Toronto agreed with you that the densities there needed to be looked at. And in fact, the city did not approve the plan. We went to the Ontario Municipal Board. The developer appealed the plan to the Ontario Municipal Board, and they got approval at the Ontario Municipal Board. They got their zoning. However, there's lots of things that they do not have approvals for yet. They don't have site plan. They have to have a road construction at the rear of the site, which they have to go through a process as well. There's a process for removal of the trees, which they have to apply for on an individual basis. And as I understand it, if there's also a further development, I believe that the site was listed in the Globe and Mail a little while ago as being for sale. So I don't expect that anything is going to happen there anytime soon. Because there are no further applications at the city other than the planning application that came through. Okay?
Okay, thank you. And our last question.
TTC question. When do we expect the line to be completed at Keele and Finch? And how, the second part of it is, how is it going to be dug out? Is it a boring machine, or is it going to be open pits? And
The station itself, the Finch West station itself, is an open cut station. That's why we're diverting the traffic to the west. If they're showed in the sketches, that Keele Street gets converted into 1 lane northbound, 1 lane southbound to bypass the station. So it's an excavation. The tunnels on each side coming to the station are augered with tunnel machines.
and when do we expect it to be completed? To Keele
Just
and
the
Finch?
station or the total program?
The station, right up to Keele and Finch.
Late 2015.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the questions. I'll let Councillor Perruzza wrap up the evening. And again, if you have any personal questions, Councillor Perruzza's staff is going to be here at the entrance. At the
Yeah,
exit.
so let's introduce everybody who's here so you all recognize them. There's Tom. Okay, if you have any questions, there's Matthias. There's Margarita and Sarah outside as well. So look them up if you have any specific issues. I just want to very quickly thank all the folks that came here and presented and chatted, and I hope you found it useful tonight. So Ted Zander, Josie, Bill, Tony Riviere, and I also wanted to thank outside, for some of you, there's the Toronto and Region Conservation Authority folks. I believe there's Julie and Sonia there. They have some very, very, very useful and good information for all of you as it relates to managing water and water around your homes and your foundations and so on. So please look them up. The other thing that we're doing, I also wanted to thank, I see Paul here, Paul Nguyen from Jane-Finch.com. He's come out, he's filmed this. And I know that a lot of your questions and a lot of the discussion tonight will end up on his website. So go to the website and take a look at, if you didn't, if you want to review anything more closely, the budget stuff and or any of the other information. So I want to thank Paul for having come out as well. And there's also Carlo out there. I'm reminded Carlo's out there as well for those of you who have any personal questions that you want to deal with as well. So the subway, it's an ongoing work in progress. It's going to be going on for the next 4 or 5 years. You're not going to be in a disruptive state for the next 4 or 5 years, but there will be times when you will be disrupted. Now they're moving the water mains and so on. soon they will have Tangiers Road opened up, and some of those detours that are going to happen for a few weeks now on some of your roads, those won't take place anymore. We will continue those updates as we move forward, and we will continue some of the discussion around the budget and what the budget means for all of you and what it means for this area, not just this year's budget, but next year's budget as well. And lastly, out there's a table. For those of you who haven't signed, we are conducting a petition to try to put our LRT line on Finch Avenue back on the table for discussion and for construction. It's so, so important for this community and for all of us. So please take the time to sign that. All of those petitions will be tabled at council, and they will be forwarded to the mayor and everyone else. So take an interest in that. Thank you all very much for having come out on such a cold winter night. I hope you found it useful.